Okay, at the beginning of our research, I told you about EBSCO, and that was a database that we have here on the Disease Research Project page that would be good for you to use. So again, that's a database, and we'll talk about how to cite that in a little bit. If you go to EBSCO, you get several options here. Choose this middle school magazine collection. That will give you some accessible articles, and they won't be too difficult to read. And then choose the Middle Search Plus and the newspaper source. And click Continue. That will narrow down some of the results you get. So this is the EBSCO search screen. Now, when you're searching in EBSCO, you do not want to type in your full question, like, where do new diseases come from? ? That will not get you many results. So I would recommend typing in infectious diseases and then choose another word that will get you some results that have to do with your question. Now remember, make sure you put infectious in there, because if you just put in diseases, you're going to find things like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and cancer and other non-communicable diseases, and we're not concerned with those. So if I just add another search term, like for instance, climate, I don't know if anybody's doing the question about the relationship between diseases and climate. Click search. I have quite a few articles here, 140. One thing you might want to do is use this sliding bar on the left and make sure that you're only looking at fairly current articles. You know, with things like disease research, a lot has happened in the last few years, and we want to make sure we have up-to-date information. So the first is a newspaper article called Climate Threat. That might be interesting. The season of ticks, could climate change worsen Lyme disease? That's an interesting article. Okay, and there are several pages full of pretty recent articles. Looking at a global picture, climate link to risk of disease. All of these look really interesting. Let's try another search. I can do infectious diseases and outbreak. If anybody has a question about what conditions promote outbreaks. And again, lots of articles. Okay, pandemics or outbreaks of infectious diseases that affect people over a large area. Avian influenza, polio. Lots of good results about different diseases that have had outbreaks. Okay, let's try another. I can try infectious diseases and myths. If anybody has a question about common myths and misconceptions about infectious diseases. Okay, so good information about vaccines and myths related to those. Myths about the flu, cold, more about vaccines. Lots of good articles here. Okay? So you'll notice that I'm just taking infectious diseases and adding a word that will tell me a little bit about what I'm looking for. Let's try emerging for those of you that have the question, where do new diseases come from? Again, some interesting articles. Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome is a very new disease. This is an article about what's happening with that in Saudi Arabia. Might be an interesting thing to look at culturegrams and see what they have there. Okay, go to the next page. Lots of news articles. Sometimes you have to scroll through quite a few pages before you find exactly what you're looking for. I'm going to also try new infectious diseases. First case of new bird flu identified in human patient. That's interesting. Let's see if there's anything else. Okay, so there's a lot of articles on EBSCO. Old bugs learn some new tricks. So this is going to have to do with different bugs and bacterial disease. You can see in the subject headings down here. Might be an interesting one to look at. So if I decide to look at this article and I click on this full text link, I can see the article, I can listen to the article, and over here on the right, I can cite the article. If I click Cite, it'll just give me all of these citations, and remember, we're looking for MLA, So I can copy and paste this whole citation back into EasyBib under that All 59 Options tab with the pasting of the citation, and then that will just add it to your database citations. Okay, that's how you cite it. Also, there's an option to translate up here in EBSCO. So I recommend using EBSCO to find some current events and other news articles about infectious diseases. I think that'll give you some really interesting perspective on some of your questions.